workshop. We had an awesome week, and we are going to round it off with an industry panel. I want to do introductions to the panelists, and I will begin with the person who has agreed to co-anchor, to co-mentor this session with me. That's Dr. Jennifer Henrichsen. She is an assistant professor in the Morrow College of Communication, and she was a speaker on this workshop earlier this week. And she's also a member, a senior personnel in CySER. And I said, I'm looking forward to talk tomorrow. And if you are on campus on Friday in the afternoon, it would be better if you help me out with this, because James and I was going to co-mentor, and I thought I could take advantage of a communication professor to do this. And so she agreed. So thank you very much for doing that. And we've got a distinguished set of panelists, and I'm going to introduce them. And when we start asking them questions, they would tell us a little bit about themselves. We've got one panelist who decided to be in person here, and she's on her way. She's trying to locate where this building is found. But I thought instead of waiting for that fifth panelist to come, we can get started without her, and I'll introduce her when she comes. We've got two panelists when she comes. In person here, and three who are joining us via Zoom. The first person is Sonia Glumich. She is the Viceroy Program Manager at the Air Force Research Laboratory, the Information Directorate to be exact, in Rome, New York. Sonia is the Viceroy person that runs, among other things, the Maven internship there. She has been a part of this workshop before. She has come all the way to Pullman to visit us a couple years ago and participated in the summer workshop. And she has also agreed to give seminars in CySER. So when I sent her an email saying, we are putting together an industry panel, would you be there? I got very early morning emails saying, I'll be there. And so my response was, you made my day. And so I'm very happy to have Sonia here. She will be one of the panelists. The other person online is Nathan Kipp. He is a senior engineer at Schweidinger Engineering Laboratories. By now, all of you and your friends know about SEL because we've had two trips to them, to the Pullman campus yesterday and today to the Moscow campus. Nathan is a long timer with CySER. He has a record. He has been in all three past CySER summer workshops. Somebody who has given us maybe a 2-hour extended kind of presentation on industrial control systems. And so this time, we asked him to be a participant as a panelist, and he agreed to that. And I was very happy with that too. That will be panelist number 2. The third one joining us online is David Stone. He is Cyber Strategic Advisor with the Office of CISO with Google. And I came to know David through Joe, who came from PNNL on Wednesday. And when I told him about our idea for this industry panel, he said, I have someone I know would be a great fit. And I reached out to David. I never met him, read an email. I think it was on LinkedIn. I contacted him, and it was spontaneous. He said, I'll be there. So there are many people who made my day this preparation time. So I'm very grateful for David Stone joining us. Here on campus, we've got two people. I'm going to start with the person who arrived first. And so Dan Brown is, is a cook. He knows this building, and he has been here as an MBA graduate and then been involved with WSU for very many years. His current role is works with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, and he's the Inland Northwest Cybersecurity Advisor. Dan is a long timer with CySER. We have had him in CySER seminars at least twice. He has been coming to this workshop in person all the time. And when I reached out to say, you have a different role this time, you're going to be part of an industry panel, he said, I would like to be on campus. And that's why he's here. So welcome and thank you very much. And the last person is Jess. Jess Smith. She is a senior cybersecurity researcher at PNNL. And Jess has been phenomenal with CySER. I've asked her 2 times and not got disappointed, both of them. The first time to give a CySER seminar, and she did that. And she also said, can I do this in person? And I said, no, we have people at Central Washington University, University of Idaho, Montana State University, and we do this virtually. And so pleased to do it virtually. And reluctantly, she did it, and it was an awesome seminar. And then we did this industry panel for the first time last year, and she participated there. And that was a great thing. So she's a second timer for doing an industry panel of this kind. So thank you very much. And she's Palos native, and she lives here. And it took some time to get this building. And I'm so glad you made it on time for us to get started. I've done the introductions. People, when they get the questions, they would say more about the roles. So Jennifer, I'll let you ask the first question and let's start going fast.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for being here. Our first question is fairly open-ended, and the students would like to know, how did you get to where you are now? So maybe we start with Dan.
Okay. I'll read my basic notes. Perseverance, motivation, networking, and a bit of luck. So when I say that, I will say that, just be persistent. You're not going to necessarily get the ideal job straight out of college, but, apply to a lot of jobs that you're qualified for, and be prepared to not hear back from 90% of them, because that's just the way it works. Be motivated, if you get one of those jobs, even if it's entry level, try and lean in and do everything that's asked, and do additional projects. And sometimes it's being in the right place at the right time. I would say the role I've had other roles that I've had to go through 3-4 interviews. The role that I currently have, they had an opening in the area, and I had one interview that was 45 minutes, and I was offered the job. So it just, again, it depends. Right place, right time. And, yeah.
When you're building a bot and how smart the bot is, sometimes you get a bot that has no pathing and it just does like this random walk. There are days that I feel like that's my career. I'm a bot with zero pathing ability because I've tried a lot of different things, and I know, looking back, if you look back, oh, she was on this great path. There was no great path. There was, I tried this, I liked it. I tried this, I didn't like it, so I don't do that again. I know it probably sounds crazy, but it's a lot of trying things, finding out what you like, finding out what you don't like. Both are completely valuable experiences. The other thing, kind of tailing off of what you were mentioning, build your network. Every job I have ever gotten has been because I knew somebody. I knew what they were looking for. They were looking for somebody like me. I had that communication. So you might think, oh, I don't have a network. Well, yes, you do. You can look around this room and you have a network. You can look around if you've got an internship, you have a network. If you randomly reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, that's a tenuous network, but you've got it. Leverage your networks. Just randomly applying to jobs, like you're saying, we'll open a posting for a week and get 300 applicants. And just parsing through those resumes takes me weeks. It's very, very hard to get pulled out of a stack of resumes. Leverage your network, and always remember there is something that makes you different, that makes you special. Highlight that on your resume. That's usually what I'm looking for. Everybody has the same cybersecurity class. Everybody has either C, Java, or Python programming. Everybody, okay, that's nice. What makes you unique? Bounce to our online.
Yeah, Sonia.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually ended up in cybersecurity a little bit by luck and chance as well. I was a senior, I was getting my cybersecurity degree, and I had an elective, and I just happened to take cybersecurity. I thought it sounded interesting. And when I took that class, we had a speaker who told us about the Scholarship for Service program. And through that, I earned my master's degree. I learned so much more about cybersecurity and really found a passion for cybersecurity. I had the opportunity to do research using a HoneyNet and doing log analysis and doing some malware analysis. It allowed me to go to job fairs and get in touch with my current employer, the Air Force Research Laboratory. they actually hired me to come first as an intern. And through that internship, I was able to work on a research team. I was able to run competitions for their interns. I also wrote a laboratory manual for high school students. So I got a lot of diverse experience through that internship. But through my performance, they invited me back for permanent employment. And so that's where I have been for the past 19 years. But I do feel like it was really kind of luck and chance that led me to here.
Wonderful. Is Nathan there?
I am here, yes.
Can you share your thoughts?
Yeah, so how I got to where I am now, everyone has mentioned luck, and that is part of it. Networking, I think everyone has mentioned networking as well. That's also part of it. I was a student at WSU, working on my computer engineering degree right at the end of the dot-com bubble, and I couldn't find a job anywhere. And so immediately I was like, okay, well, I can hunt around for jobs forever or go back to school. So I went back for my MBA, and that's really where I started networking. And it was that network I created during my MBA program that landed me the job at the company I'm at today, SEL. By knowing people who worked at SEL, who I was in the same classes with, worked in groups with, finding out about job opportunities from them is what led me to getting my start, my feet in the door at SEL. At SEL, I've been in a lot of different positions. I've been there for 17 years now. I started out as an applications engineer. And for those of you who don't know, an applications engineer is someone who generally works on the tail end of product development. The product has been developed and you're working on how to educate the field on how it works, troubleshoot problems that the field experiences, bring some of their problems back to developers for maintenance and for improving the next generation of the product. And while I was working as an application engineer, my focus was on cybersecurity products. Coming out of school, I was not looking for cybersecurity specifically. I wanted to be in product development. Cybersecurity is something that happened due to the nature of the products that I was initially assigned to, and I've loved it. After application engineering, I moved to product development, which is kind of the front side of product development. So application engineering, after it is created, you work with the field to get them using it more effectively. Product development is then looking at the front side of, product management is the front side of product development, meaning you're looking at what features need to go into the next iteration of the product or what new product is necessary to solve the problems that our user base is experiencing. So I've seen both sides of product development. From there, I moved on to product development management. And for the past year or so, I've been working mostly on policy. I've been writing our company policy around cybersecurity. So most recently, I've been working on our vulnerability management policies. So it's been kind of a long progression to where I'm at today. I got very lucky in getting into a great company right out of school. But the reason I got there was definitely due to the networking I had done while I was in school.
Thank you. And how about David? Is David on it?
Yes.
Hey, everybody. I feel like I might repeat myself a little bit and actually repeat some of the panelists. My apologies. Video's not working right now for me, but and apologies, I can't be there in person. My story is actually kind of similar to Sonia's and the rest of the crowd here. You know, if someone had said, you know, this is going to be your career path 20 years ago, I probably would have laughed, to be candid with you. It is a combination of skills and time spent, as well as the networking component that I really heard in the room. But I think the piece of it is also around the adaptability of it, right? A lot of things happen in this environment that require you to think through and navigate in weird ways in order to get to the challenge and to the outcome that you want. I started my career off in a scholarship for service program, very similar, where essentially I think I walked into a professor's career, into his office for a career session, and they said, "Hey, there's this cybersecurity scholarship that we want you to apply for." And that headed me down the route of getting my master's in cybersecurity through the Department of Defense. I spent a couple years at NSA. After that, I moved to a community bank in North Carolina, went to state and local government, then went into the tech industry, and then wound myself up at another very large financial institution, BB&T, now Truist. And then that led me into Google, where I now direct our North American financial services practices across all of Google Cloud and get to really work with a lot of large financials in various different industries and aspects around that. Um, I always hire for two things, and I call them as attitude and aptitude. Around that, the ability to learn is crucial, and having the right attitude to be open in order to learn is definitely one of the key attributes. And I think I heard earlier and really would echo the point of figure out what you like and what you don't like. Each one of those experiences is very much a learning experience and figure out how you can contribute to the team. A lot of it was being in the right place at the right time, but a lot of it was also the openness to trying something new and figuring out, hey, can we do this? And let's figure out a path forward to do it. So I would encourage that. And then also the networking component is so crucial around that. So just echo those key points. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I'll go with the second question, and I think all of you have kind of touched on this one already, and it's okay to kind of repeat in a way, but if you want to say something more, you could also do that. What advice would you give to someone just getting started in cybersecurity? And I ask this question not just because you haven't addressed it, but you have the hindsight now. So you say it was, things that were not necessarily, you knew where you were headed, but you got the experience you've had now. Plus, unlike maybe the times when most of you got started with cybersecurity, there is a better way to get started, including, for example, to major in cybersecurity at WSU now. And so considering all of these things, to those people who are interested, which would include everyone in this workshop, what advice would you give to someone just getting started in cybersecurity? And I have heard three people who have gone through SFS. If you want to elaborate on that one as well, you can do that. I'll start with Jessie.
Well, I'm SFS too, so I'm very proud of that. I would say, first of all, develop your niche, whatever that's going to be. If you tell me you have a degree in cybersecurity and you want to do cybersecurity, I'm going to look at you and say, okay, that's nice. You've just told me you want to do civil engineering or mechanical engineering. If you're a civil engineer, you can build bridges, you can build dig ditches. Which one do you want to do? Cybersecurity. Are you into crypto? Are you into active network defense? Are you into deep research into quantum, post-quantum crypto? What are you into? Malware reversing. You may not know now, but try some things, figure out what interests you. This is not going to lock you into this for the rest of your life. You will have the opportunity to change. And that kind of leads me to my second point. Keep learning. Where I started in cyber 4 years ago that I'm willing to admit right now, things were very different. A lot of the problems that we deal with today are still the same ones. Human beings are still the biggest problem. Back then I could secure a network if I took the humans out of it. That still is true today. But there's a lot of things like generative AI. That was not a concern back when I started in cyber. So find your niche, find something that you can be proud of that is not just in the book. Don't expect all your solutions to be in the book. Cybersecurity, they're very rarely, you might have no solutions, you might have 10 solutions. And keep learning. Don't be afraid to try something new. I'm having to go back to class now to learn about some of the generative AI stuff because it's very relevant. It's how do you define the supply chain of AI? That's my current problem. So don't be afraid to learn and grow whatever your interests are in.
I'm going to reference back to David's comments about attitude and aptitude. I think early on in my career, I did retail, I did all kinds of things. I think there needs to be a customer service component to whatever pathway you choose, whether that's help desk, if you've worked in food service, retail, whatever. Learning to work with people, both the good side and the bad side, is a skill that is attitude and is more difficult to teach. Aptitude, we can teach skills, but just having those experiences helped me be a better people person. And I think that's one thing that I would recommend. And again, realize that every pathway, and I think, there was a question on journey, I noticed, but every pathway is a little bit different. And if you didn't start in this program, you started somewhere else, those previous skills you have, they're valuable. Fall back on those. There's an industry and there's technology associated with everything. So remember that and value all of the opportunities and skills from your previous jobs.
So funny that we go into this to get away from people, a lot of us.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
It's not.
Thanks, Dan. Sonia, would you mind going next?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm, following that current thread. My biggest advice to anyone starting out is to make sure that you stay technical. As you progress in your career, you start to take on more and more leadership responsibilities. But eventually, your skill set becomes obsolete if you can't find some time to continue working on your technical skills, to continue to stay relevant, to take courses. Making sure that you're giving yourself your own little technical challenges, and sometimes you kind of have to take that in hand. For example, right now I'm a program manager. When I started, I never imagined that I would be a program manager because that was not on my my wish list. But here I am anyway, but I still have the chance to do a lot of the work that I love, whether it's teaching, whether it's developing new exercises and challenges for students, but just find a way to stay technical. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. We'll go the same order. Nathan?
All right. There's a lot of ways I can take this question, right? Are you wanting to get started in cybersecurity as a career, or you want to get started in cybersecurity as a job? There's two different ways to answer that, right? If we're looking at it from the job perspective, your resume is incredibly important, your network is incredibly important, and your cover letter is incredibly important. My last position was a hiring manager. And over the last 5 years, I've hired about 30, 35 people at SEL. And I can tell you, about 1, maybe 2% of the applicants I get actually have a cover letter. And if that cover letter is tuned for the position and the company, you immediately go to the top of the list. Even if the first job you have listed on your resume is dishwasher, you are immediately at the top of the list because you've shown that you have the desire to be there. You're not just mass emailing hundreds of resumes to different companies, hoping for somebody to bite. You are actually targeting the company you want to work for. That goes a long ways towards getting that job. If we look at from more of a career perspective, and you want to have a long-term career in cybersecurity, be willing to do anything, right? Again, going back to the last resume I mentioned, right? If your resume has dishwasher on there as your first position, okay, that doesn't show me really technical experience. It doesn't show me that you have an interest in cybersecurity at that time, but it does show me that you're willing to do whatever you need to do to further your career, to take care of your family, to take care of yourself, whatever it is, right? Dishwasher is below a lot of people. I am not going to hire somebody who is not willing to do the lowest job on the totem pole, right? That's a starting point. You're going to have to do that sometimes, even when you're a VP of a company. You never know what you're going to have to do, but as long as you're willing to do what needs to be done, that goes a long ways towards improving your career and helping you grow and climb up that career ladder. Just said, develop your niche. That's a big part of it as well. There's a lot of different industries you can go into for cybersecurity. You can go into national defense. You can go into industrial control systems. You can go into finance and banking. You can go into education. Right? There's a lot of different areas you can go, and depending on what your interests lie in, what your background lies in, and what your technical what your technical aspect is targeted towards. Knowing that industry goes a long ways towards helping improving your cybersecurity career because all the different industries treat cybersecurity differently. All right, finance, for example, has a much higher emphasis on confidentiality, whereas industrial control systems, we have a much higher emphasis on availability. Right, so those different industries can drastically change your outlook and the actions and your day-to-day tasks when it comes to cybersecurity. But more than that, have fun. Cybersecurity can be incredibly stressful. I think it was Dan mentioned mistakes, problem solving. Cybersecurity at its core, at least what I've been dealing with recently, is realizing that cybersecurity is dealing and handling and correcting people's mistakes. It is an industry of mistakes, right? If we didn't have people making mistakes in coding, we wouldn't have vulnerabilities in software. And we have to realize that mistakes happen, and we don't want to bash people or attack people for making mistakes as long as they do the correct thing and try to correct it. And that can be stressful at times, just dealing with mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, but having the patience to understand that's what's going on. And people are, it's just something that happens. We're all human. We all make mistakes. There was a statistic that one of my execs threw out probably a year ago. On average, most people make about 5 mistakes, maybe 6 mistakes per hour. Most of those are pretty small, but people are constantly making mistakes, and that's something we need to be aware of in cybersecurity. They're mistakes. People are not trying to be malicious. People are not necessarily trying to cause problems. It just honestly happens. So depending on what aspect of cybersecurity you got to recognize, I have to have the patience for dealing with a lot of those mistakes.
Thank you very much, Nathan. David, if you remember the question, I think you go ahead and share your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the responses so far, and would just again +1 on everything that everyone has said. I think that it is a huge career field from cybersecurity, and I love the comment of okay, what in cybersecurity actually excites you, right? Like, what is the thing that you would get up and say, I want to do this forever and ever, right? Like, and that's always something that I ask of folks when, interviewing is what excites you? What is the thing that really drives you to excel? And within cybersecurity, the field itself can vary from everything from governance, risk, and compliance, tearing apart malware code, vulnerability management that we heard before, application security. There's so many facets of this around that really are around the people aspect, around the technology aspect, around the business impact components of it, and how does this relate to real people and real problems that we see across that. You don't have to look far to see examples of this, like with Colonial Pipeline or other places that affected society. And you can see the impact that cyber has on the day-to-day lives of everyone today. And it's spot on around the various different industries having different views and lenses to cybersecurity and what's most important. And that's mostly driven by business value, right? I know some people that are very passionate about healthcare and providing great healthcare to rural communities, et cetera, and they excel in that healthcare because they care about the people aspect of that and they care about the cybersecurity. And I think that finding that niche and finding what powers you is really the secret sauce around that. And drive deeper into each of those fields. It might not be your top-notch thing to be in a security operations center 24/7, but there'll be valuable learnings that you figure out with that. You'll figure out when things break, how do they actually work? How do people work as organizations when they're under stress? Everything about that is a learning opportunity, as well as vulnerability management, application security, and you can just go around the horn. Data science is also a huge field within cyber as well, and especially with AI driven. Probably no secret that we're driving some of that AI along with the rest of the field. Those are some exciting pieces around it. And I would encourage you also to take advantage of some of those tools. Plug the companies that you're looking at into AI and say, hey, based off of their 10K filings, based off the public reports, what do they care about? What is the top thing that I would be concerned with from a security perspective about this company? Use those as tools as you look at different opportunities to figure out how you craft that cover letter, how you stand out, and then how you start to think about if I was them, what would be my main concern, and how can I potentially help them solve that with my unique skill sets coming out. So I'll leave you with that, but thank you. Yeah, that was a great question. Just echo the panel's responses.
Thank you very much, David. Jen, why don't you go ahead and
Yeah, so keeping in mind the myriad facets of cybersecurity and the different positions represented in this panel, what does your workday look like? What does your average workday look like? Or do you have an average workday? Because you do not. Go for it.
what I would like to happen is ideally, I read through my communication threads, whatever they might be, whether it's, Teams or Slack or Outlook. I look for critical issues that need to be dealt with immediately. I try and take care of that, then try and prioritize, other emails and notifications, tasks that they need to do, and then try and build in 30 minutes of just general, I'll say training. I mean, I'll look online, just kind of the state of the union. I'll just try and see what's going on in the cyber world. Is there an attack at, CTAC, for example, and how does that affect me? And does it? And is it part of something else that's going on that's a bigger attack by a nation state, for example? So I'll do that, and then just try and build in that training time. That 30 minutes. It might just be between two projects that I'm working on. I just need to get my head in a different space. But I think it's important to try and stay abreast. I mean, we talked about training. So yeah, build that in. Just try and structure your day in a way that works for you. I mean, I'm not as much a morning person, so sometimes I'll build my afternoons heavier.
I'd much rather work at 9 o'clock at night than 9 in the morning. I have no structure. Every day is a little bit different, and a lot of it depends on who I'm working for. I'm Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. We do contracting for just about every 3-letter agency you can think of, with partners at CySER. So there are days that I've got my Space Force hat on, and I'm sitting here looking through critical components lists for things that are literally going to go into a military satellite and are going to go into space in the next year or two. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do we evaluate those supply chains? And then the next day I might be working for, say some of my partners in Department of Energy. And we're working with partners like Schweitzer Engineering, saying, okay, how do we help design the computers that control the power grid? How do we put stuff in there to make those a little bit more secure? How do we do OT SDN? How do we do zero trust in an OT environment? How do we enable all of that? And then I'm also a team lead, which means I was stupid and went into management as part of my time. That whole stay technical thing, that might have hit a little bit close to the bone there. So at least some of my time is focused on my team. And they're mostly junior engineers, people who are in the first, say, 10 to 15 years of their career. And it's helping them grow, helping them get the resources they need, the training time, the networking time, the ability to say, hey, I've got a solution. How do we find the right partner so that we can implement that solution? Because that's a lot of what we do. It's come up with it, find the problem, figure out the novel solution, build it, get it out there and move on. Most of my projects are not longer than about 2 years. So it's that constant cycle of, okay, what's new, what's coming up, what's the next problem, and how do I fix it? So yeah, my days are, and then I get days like this where I get to come talk to y'all, which I'm all for that.
Great. Sonia, do you want to answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I come into work pretty early in the morning, about 6:30, which I really like because then I can just sit, I can look at my email, I can see if there's any fires that, you need to put out for the day. Definitely, during my week, I have a lot of different meetings. We have kind of our main customer who sets kind of the strategic oversight for the program that I work is out of OUSD at the Pentagon. So we definitely meet with them, to see, what we need to do. So regular meetings with them. I also have regular meetings with the contractor that helps execute the program as well. And so there's definitely a lot of meetings. I have to do things like I have to review invoices to look at the spending. I have paperwork because I work for the government. It's definitely, there's a bureaucracy there. So there's definitely lots of paperwork to do, whether it's working on a new agreement with some type of an entity or, filling out paperwork so that people can do classified work at another site. So definitely a lot of meetings, but I definitely take time out of there, to carve in my time to work on my own personal projects. It's generally things to help out with the internship. And one really nice thing too about my job is that it's definitely seasonal. My summer is very different than the rest of the year because in the summer we have the Maven interns here, and I spend a lot of time with them. You know, the summer is my favorite time of year working with the students. So I really appreciate that chance to, you know, to kind of have ebbs and flows in my year in terms of the kinds of work that I need to do. Thank you.
Great, wonderful. Nathan?
Yeah, so I just pulled up my calendar. I started to work today at 6:30, and every day, my first half hour, I blocked out my calendar. I call it daily calibration, right? And that's for me to figure out, okay, what didn't get completed yesterday, we need to complete today. What new things came in overnight that I need to work on today? And part of that also is what Dan does early in the morning is prioritize. Every single day, I've got more to do than I could possibly do in that day. So I've got to figure out what is not important enough to be done. And very often some of that just gets deleted and I never think about it again. Very often some of that gets put off and okay, maybe I'll get to this next week. But then I always figure out what is most important to be done today. In my previous position, most of my day was actually talking and in meetings either with company execs or with customers. In that position, I was in product development. I was managing a development team for a SaaS platform that we were, a software as a service platform that we were building. And that required constant communication with all of our external stakeholders. So I was in about 6 hours of meetings a day in my last position. My current position, I'm internal support focused. So my morning today, I've got nothing between 7 and 11. At least nothing dedicated. So my daily calibration basically dictates what I'm doing in that time frame, which is my current primary project, which right now is writing policies around vulnerability management. Then this afternoon today is this meeting, but most afternoons is also blank time. I have most of my meetings in afternoons, so there'll be a lot of meetings there, but that other blank time generally goes to my secondary project or maybe my tertiary project. I generally have 2 or 3 things I'm working on at once. Most of the meetings that I have, I generally set on my own, working with either the stakeholders in the company or again, every once in a while, external customers. And my day ends generally at 3:30. And I like that schedule because then I get to be up early and take care of the kids before they go to school in the morning. And then I get to be finished early and take care of the kids when they get home from school in the afternoon. So that works really well for me and my family. I also work from home. I'm in Vancouver, Washington. We have an office in Beaverton, Oregon, which is the closest office to me. I used to work there, but it is through downtown Portland for the commute, and it really takes me like an hour, hour and a half on most days to make that commute. And so I've been lucky enough to get in a situation where I can work from home and actually work these hours. It also helps that other people in my group, my counterpart is in Houston, so he's 2 hours ahead of me. So it actually really benefits the company for me to be able to work early in the morning like that as well on the same timeline as other people in my group.
Great, thank you so much. David, what is your average work day look like?
It's a great question. I'll probably echo that it looks a little bit sporadic if you were to take a look at it. My current role is basically wearing 2 hats for Google Cloud. The first is how do we drive security across the internal products within Google and make sure that we maintain and continue to elevate the security around that, everything from implementation of zero trust to advanced security mechanisms, et cetera. The other hat that I wear is helping customers build and achieve security focus within their networks from a priority point of view from that. So it's a really interesting role in the fact that we get to work with both industry and we get to drive change internally to Google around some of those things as well. So if you take a look at that and you say, one of the key priorities and how do you focus in on it? One of our key priorities is, it might sound a little bit crazy, but how do we secure the planet around that? And then how do we secure our customers? And how do we secure the cloud? And we look through those 3 priorities and we kind of prioritize within that. So part of what I do is industry focused and outward reach across financial services and other industries. And how do we drive change that's systematically good across that? For example, one of our projects that we just went live with was how do we reduce fraud across the financial services and other ecosystems. So people that get those spam text messages and everything else can appreciate the value statement of not defrauding people and customers across that ecosystem. And then the other piece of that hat is then, okay, how do we work with CISOs and their security teams in order to optimize what they do? So we get to work with them on a lot of different challenges. One of them that's key and crucial, and I heard it echoed before, and I'll just reemphasize, is around the people. How do we operationalize and put security, and how do we transform them as an organization to be most effective? What are the lessons we've learned by scaling, and what are the things that we can help with and apply those things to? So multiple meetings throughout various different CISOs throughout the day, as well as other customers across the basis from various different teams across any number of initiatives, post-quantum, AI, et cetera. We're regularly briefing, advising, and helping out with those pieces and parts. And then the third piece of my day is normally then how do we drive all of the learnings and the things that we hear from our customers into building better products at the end of the day and building the security into those products from a security perspective. My previous job as a CISO was much different within financial services and the wholesale and payment. It was very much a achieving goals around how do we protect trillions of dollars moving through the financial backbone. And with that came 24/7 kind of operational support within our security operations centers, responding to those third-party breaches, et cetera. So depending on the role that you pick, it very much dictates the day that you'll have. And in some of those aspects, and it goes back to being passionate, is expect the interrupts when you don't least need them and least expect them around those pieces, because attackers and everyone else realize that we try to take the weekends off, we try to take vacations, et cetera. And that's absolutely when they will take advantage of the weak links in the system. So depending on the job and the opportunity and how you're powered in the day, just look at that as you apply to these positions as well, and understand there may be some burden on your personal time as well, as you go through those different life decisions and positions within that. Thank you.
I'll take the next question from Jen. So all of you have said things that I think would make and lead to the question I'm going to ask. Having seen, cybersecurity in general in your own careers and in what industries you're working on, what would the future of cybersecurity look like? And you can think of this more as a field and maybe also in terms of pursuing a career in it. And for variation, this time around, I'm going to start with the people who are virtual. And so you get some time to think about this important question. You can relate it with AI, post-quantum computing, which were topics that were featured here. And each of you, I'd like to answer the question, especially in the industry you are in. And Sonia, I'm going to start with you, and feel free to emphasize the Department of Defense kind of things and how cybersecurity is perceived there. I apologize for pitting you the first person, but Sonia, why don't you go ahead and tackle that question first?
Sure, absolutely. Happy to. Definitely the future of cybersecurity. Well, definitely there's been a trend towards increasing system complexity, which means that there's always lots of work to do in the cybersecurity realm, because of course, complexity is the enemy of cybersecurity, and usually vulnerabilities are proportional to the complexity of the system. That's even taken a little bit to a further extreme when you do talk about AI/ML, because, there's a lot of efforts towards how do we develop explainable AI/ML so we know what decision and why they're making the decisions that they're making. How do we know that those systems aren't being tampered with, either when they're being developed or, through the data that they're being fed. But there's also a little bit of a plus side to cybersecurity and AI/ML. I think that we can use that to help us automate a lot of tasks that we do. So, for example, throughout my career, I've worked on cyber vulnerability analysis of different systems for the lab or for the DoD. There are things that we do. We have to pour through a lot of documentation. And we need to do things like figure out what protocols, what types of components are in the system, what types of information is exchanged. Those are the types of things that potentially, could be automated and with AI/ML. And I'm actually experimenting with that as one of my personal projects. But the problem with that is a lot of times, at least today, AIML is wrong, just dead wrong. It contradicts itself, so there is a lack of trust there. And you certainly need cybersecurity experts to be able to, look at the output from AIML and say, this is wrong or this is right, and to validate that. That's where we're at right now. Maybe into the future, we'll end up with AIML that's a lot more trustworthy, where, maybe we'll be able to rely on it more. So I see it both as, a challenge for cybersecurity, but also potentially as an enabler of cybersecurity as well. Certainly with respect to quantum, at some point there's going to be a big paradigm shift where, the public key cryptography that we rely on is no longer going to be something that is trustworthy. And so definitely that is an area of interest to the DoD, is looking at, quantum resistant algorithms. In fact, one of our Maven intern teams last summer was looking at that in particular, doing a performance analysis of those types of algorithms. So that's definitely an area of interest in terms of cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Nathan, the question is, what would cybersecurity look like in the future in your industry, especially?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer because things are constantly changing, right? And I can answer that question today. My answer today is probably going to be different than it was 6 months ago. It's going to be different again in 6 months. So I can tell you what it is today, but keep in mind it is constantly changing. I mimic a lot of what Sonia said, complexity. If we look at my industry in particular, industrial control systems, and I didn't get to give you the talk earlier this week like I would have in years past, so I'm not expecting you to have the background that I would have before, but industrial control systems have changed in complexity drastically in just the 20 years that I've been here. And it used to be that you would build an industrial control system or power system and expect it to be completely isolated, completely air-gapped from everything else. That is not the case today. There's increased connectivity, there are increased automations, there's increased data flows in and out of those systems that most of us cybersecurity professionals who are a little bit paranoid would say don't do ever, but the business needs overrule us. And so dealing with those challenges of, okay, the business needs this, even though it's a bad idea from a security perspective, figuring out those solutions to those problems. And it's really often at this point integrations from between IT systems and industrial control systems. So for example, we need metering data out of the power system for finance to use. In the past, it would have been an engineer goes in, grabs a report, pulls the report, and installs the report on a thumb drive or basically on his computer off of serial communications. Today, it is an Ethernet stream, straight from the relay to the finance group, sometimes over the internet. So there's a lot of new challenges in our industry dealing with integrating with the rest of modern mass IT systems. Automation and AI is a big problem as well. The speed that my industry moves is very, very slow. If we have a vulnerability in one of our products and we fix that vulnerability and provide it to our customers, we can expect that vulnerability to be fixed in the field. Never. No one's ever going to completely roll out fixes for that vulnerability in that product. Some customers will. The customers that do it, I can't expect to do it in less than 2 years. And so we have a real challenge in needing to speed up our customers' responses to vulnerabilities, to security events, to security information in a way that is vastly beyond what they do today. We do not have the concept of a Patch Tuesday, an automated Patch Tuesday in our industry. And part of that is just our industry wanting to move slow because we're very risk averse. Part of that is our industry does not have the tools to do things in a safe and reliable and secure and always available manner. It is not an option for our industry to, for example, update antivirus signatures and have our Windows box not boot on the next boot. That is not an option, period. If that happens, power systems go down, banks, libraries, hospitals lose power, and that's a huge economic impact to the entire area. So those types of challenges are what my industry is dealing with. And really, the increased connectivity, the increased speed at which attackers can take action, and us needing to improve the response times of all of our users and all of our customers.
Thanks, Nathan. David, would you take the same question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And absolutely a lot of great comments on the panel again. I'll frame it with I'm a short-term pessimist, long-term optimist, where cybersecurity is headed around these things. And I think all of us can see the shortcomings that basically have been in the systems and everything else, and for a variety of different reasons. If you take a look at the comment around the business needs, the technical debt that's been built up, the various different components and systems, absolutely. I think one of the key things that I'm looking forward to in the future is how do we reverse the defender's dilemma? So we all today face the problem statement of the attackers only have to be right once and the defenders have to be right 100% of the time. How do we change that paradigm in the future to make it more cost advantageous for the defenders rather than the attackers? The attackers are doing this for a lot of different reasons, state sponsored, money, all of the good things that we would consider that. How do we take the incentives away or make it hard enough as a system in order for cybersecurity to actually defend at scale and at speed across the various different systems? We've gotten various different technologies that are coming to the forefront, right? We've got AI, we've got quantum computing, which we both are building the quantum computer as well as rolled out quantum resistant algorithms internally around the transit at Google Cloud and various different other components. But there's other aspects to this that I don't think we've even started to fathom around how do we do this. I think one of the key skills that will be needed in the future, no matter what, is how do we communicate that risk? How do we relate to our business? And how do we clearly articulate what is going to be the risk around a certain decision from one way or the other? And that needs to be communicated to management at various different levels so that we can articulate when is a good risk and a bad risk to help advise that business going forward. They still may take the bad risk side that we think is bad, and we need to learn how do we communicate those better. I think that one of the key challenges that will be ahead of us too is how do we define this industry? It is a new industry. Most of the people on the call, less than a couple decades worth of experience within that. And if you look at that compared to the other industries and the other fields out there, it is quite a nascent industry. We do not have the years of expertise underneath us like the chief financial officers or other places within our industry do. And they can roll up into any financial institution and say, here's my financials for it. Here's a standard report. Everyone nods and say, yes. I've yet to see that work in cyber when a CISO rolls up to a board and say, here's my standard report. And that's partially because of the business and the context underneath it. So within the financial services industry, I see this definitely expanding within years of how do we look at these risks? How do we communicate better? How do we actually balance the business risk with the cyber risk and do that in a quantifiable way that can help relate and make sure that we continue to operate even while under attack into cyber resiliency and other areas that definitely will improve over time. But it's our job and our responsibility to figure out how do we drive the industry ahead in all of those ways to make it better than what we found it in. So I think that's really a key driver for me and what I'm looking forward to in the next couple of decades with cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jess. David, Jess, would you?
Sure. Yeah, and kind of off of what David said, I think key risk indicators, KRIs, and key performance indicators, KPIs will be critical. I think that, in my world, we support the 16 sectors of critical infrastructure, and we're about best practice and doing the right thing. But in some of those sectors, they're more regulated, and then you have compliance and regulation. And I think it's important to remember that you need, even if the regulation only, or the compliance says you have to get to a certain level, you need to go to that next level and do what's right and what's best practice. Not go for minimum standards. I think that, the aggregation of all of the data, think like a SIM or, some logging, all of that data together with AI to comb through that data and look for patterns and anomalies. I think that will be a tremendous benefit for, identifying patterns and seeing things that we wouldn't necessarily be able to see with our existing tools. I have definite concerns about securing that data. We put things into ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or whatever, and I'm not quite sure where that data goes. You need to be cautious and cognizant of that. I know that we have our own DHS AI platform, and the data stays internal, but I think that's a concern. It'd be nice if there was one master database of threats and things that are going on, so we could again see patterns and be able to stay one step ahead of threat actors if they're hitting, water systems in the United States and Canada, and they start with, ones that have a certain type of OT network devices, and then we could let, if we saw 10 of those, we could let the others that we were aware of know that they need to watch out, just things like that. But again, securing all that data is a concern.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm gonna turn this 90 degrees and go philosophical on y'all.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear the hesitation in your voice, and there probably should be some. For all the students in here, how do the civil engineers, the mechanical engineers, the chemical engineers, how do they treat cybersecurity as a degree? Do they see you guys as engineers? I'm seeing a lot of heads going no. Same, I didn't have the opportunity to do cyber. Just came before that, it was computer science, same thing. They don't see us. I believe the scientists do not think computer science is a science. They share that same opinion. And I can't blame them. Because we have created this crazy new digital environment. And cybersecurity is a huge part of that. But we aren't engineers and scientists to the level that a lot of our peers are, just because our environment is so new. A mechanical engineer or a civil engineer is working in the physical environment. How long has the physical environment existed? If you're religious, a couple thousand years. If you're not religious, maybe a couple million years, billion years, trillion years. They've had some time. We've just created this digital environment. And I think the big push that I want to see out of cybersecurity, out of computer science, out of data science, out of all of those over the next 5 to 10 years, is let's start doing some very deep soul searching and figure out how the heck do we get ourselves to the point where we can honestly look at ourselves and call ourselves engineers and scientists. That we are actually treating this digital environment with the introspection that is expected of a scientist, with the testing, with the analyses, with the repeatable results that are expected out of science, and similarly with engineering. Most of your civil mechanical engineers, all professional engineers, they get that little metal ring that they wear on their pinky finger. That every time they sign off on a building, every time they sign off on a bridge, that ring is supposed to remind them of what their duty is. If that building goes down, if that bridge goes down and people die, it's on them. How do we get software engineering to a point where those of us who write code could have that ring on our finger and say, yes, I am that confident in this code? I don't think we're there. I don't know that we're ever going to get there, but I sure as hell want to try and get there. Partially for my own self-dignity, but partially because I think the future of not just our American world, but our real world is built on digital components. Digital is in everything. Digital is in everything from the projector to the screen to the cell phones to my nephews have got those little light up shoes. You can program those stupid things now. We went through a whole thing where we had to program them with different lights for a party. It was a thing. Computers are in everything. So we have made this digital environment. We have woven it as a thread through almost every part of our life. How do we figure out how to do it right? I think we really need to take a step back. We're so focused on what the problem is right in front of us. How do I deal with crypto? How do I deal with AI? How do I deal with whatever it is? Yes, those are problems we gotta fix. But we also gotta take a step back and say, how do we fix this? How do we look at this with a little bit different, longer lens? All right, off of my soapbox.
Oh, wonderful. Jen, you have a final question to ask to John, or should we open it for
I was
students?
going to open it to.
Yeah,
for students,
definitely. Let's go ahead and do that. You can go ahead and ask questions. We had finished the set of, lead questions we have had for the panelists, and then they had an excellent job, but I'm sure there were things going on in your head when the answers were being given. So it's free time now. You can ask any question you like.
And we don't generally eat students. We at least wait till you're interns. You're safe for now.
This is a little like harder, like before, but what was your guys' like first job that like kind of got you interested, but like it was not related to cyber really at all? Unless it was always cyber, but.
I actually didn't go into cyber originally. I went into computer science because I'd worked in IT support. I worked help desks. My husband was military, and I moved all over the nation and worked at all these scummy little computer repair shops. Louisiana, learning about what a roach nest will do to the inside of your PC, that was bad. I can deal with the snakes, I can deal with the lizards, the roaches got. I wanted to build a better computer. I was sick and tired of fixing everybody else's mistakes, so that's what I went back to college for, and then got sucked into cyber. So I can blame my path into cybersecurity on having to clean up roach-infested PCs. Yeah.
Did you hear the question?
Yeah, basically what was my pathway, my first cyber job? So I initially went to school to be an electrical engineer. And I was not at a point where I could complete all of the calculus classes. So I went for 3 years, kind of took some time off, got married, had kids, and then went back and got an MIS degree. And after that, I ended up selling computers at Radio Shack, which again gave me some of that customer service skill. And
Oh, for the days when Radio Shack sold computers.
yes, exactly. Then I worked at Keytronic as an intern, got an internship. It was a great opportunity. And then just kind of worked my way in, started at help desk, supporting Citibank branches on night shift, working, what was it, midnight to 8 a.m. That was not fun, but so worked my way through. I've been in public service for probably 25 years, and I'll say that up until a few months ago, I would say that there's stability. You're not going to get rich. You're going to have good benefits and a sense of worth and helping the greater good. So that is something. Higher ed, I felt the same way. Working here, you having a core common mission of trying to educate students and that next generation of people that will be running everything. So, yeah.
Is anyone online would like to take that answer? You don't have to, but what was it? First?
Sure, I can, because actually, I mean, I like this question because it shows that a lot of times you take a convoluted path until you finally kind of reach, the career that you want. I actually started as a high school teacher. So I have degrees in biology and chemistry and wanted to be a teacher. But while I was doing my student teaching, I had a job, to pay for school, and I was doing hardware and software troubleshooting for McDonald's across the country. And I really kind of fell in love with computing. One of my friends was a level 3 programmer, so he would go in and he would fix, bugs. I wanted to learn how to code. And I ended up going back to school to study computer science. And now I have a career where I get to teach and I get to work with computers. And so I kind of found like the best of both worlds.
Nathan, do you want to take the question?
Yeah, I can. So my undergrad work was in computer engineering. I did not think cybersecurity initially. I wanted to do RTL, register transfer language, ASIC design, just code FPGAs. That was where I wanted to be working. As I mentioned previously, the dot-com bubble burst right as I was graduating. I didn't have any job opportunities. I went back for an MBA. I did my MBA at WSU, and while I was doing that, I worked for the WSU libraries. kind of like Jess as a help desk technician. And while I was working for the libraries, we had an incident which brought the FBI in and was a nice fun time for all of us in the IT group over there, where somebody was using the library's public computers to take advantage of a Boeing benefits offer fraudulently. And so I didn't really get real deeply involved with the FBI investigation, but since I was help desk technician, I did have to go around and collect a lot of computers, collect a lot of data for them to use, for them to investigate. So that was kind of my first real exposure to working in cybersecurity, and it was fun. It was interesting, even though I was not deep into it. I got to see a lot of what was going on the side.
David? Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, I'll probably take a similar path here. My first job, maybe while I was in high school, was janitorial at a old school pharmacy. This was one of those ones that not only did the pharmacy aspect, but actually like grilled burgers and stuff off to the side. There's nothing more motivating than cleaning grease out of those vents in order to figure out that you don't want to do that for the rest of your life. So when I went to college, I got a job as a help desk technician across our local library and campuses, fixing printers, computer problems, all sorts of various different things across that. What got me into cyber was I actually enjoyed the breaking part of things. So that was kind of the new and interesting piece of I was able to break into computers and test out things that I'd never thought were supposed to operate that way. And that was probably, during junior and senior year there. And that kind of tipped my hat into, okay, I want to get into the cyber thing a little bit more. And that went into the masters in cybersecurity, et cetera. I was very lucky to work for NSA right off the bat there with a very talented group of people that really, I think, just expedited my knowledge around how computers work and how we think they do and how they really do, and how do systems work and how do they really work. And out of that, able to then drive that knowledge into how do I power the rest of the career that I want to have with the balance that I want to have within that. So it was a very lucky situation where I did an internship with them and then fell into a very talented group within there. I believe the rule of the day was no shorts and sandals on the same day you brief a general. So it was a very fun and collaborative atmosphere from that perspective. So that's how I broke into cyber.
Thanks a lot, David. Other question from students? All questions are fair game. Sorry?
Yeah, what's the favorite part about your job that you have now that you do? It could be a task or something less tangible.
We go online while I think for a minute.
Okay, we can go online. Sonia, what's your favorite?
I'm happy to. One of the really cool things about my job is I've gotten to do things I never, ever would have imagined. I never dreamed of working for the government, working for the Department of Defense. I've briefed generals. I've got to go on a F-16 flight line. I've gotten to go, to the Pentagon and work there for 3 weeks. And, I've worked in a vault for multiple years and didn't see the sunshine all day, but worked on some really cool and interesting work. Definitely, there's the opportunity to travel, you get to go all over the place, to visit different places, especially now in my role as Viceroy Program Manager. I get to go to universities. Who doesn't like to go and visit beautiful campuses and, talk to people who are passionate about the same things you're passionate about. And so those are, and then certainly working with the students, because that keeps you from getting jaded. It keeps you, really enjoying work, and working with students as well is one of my favorite things. Thank you.
Thanks, Sonia. Nathan, I saw
the question.
Yeah, the question?
Yes.
The question is, what's the favorite part of your job? It could be anything you like. What's the favorite part?
I like that. Well, I mean, as far as my career goes so far, I've got to mimic a lot of what Sonia said. There's been a lot of travel that I never expected to do. That comes from the first two parts of my job: application engineering and product management. I've been to every continent except Antarctica. I've been to probably 42 states. And that whole time has been a complete blast. It's been a ton of fun. Meeting people, learning what their unique problems are. And That's not something I ever really thought I would do in cybersecurity. However, being part of a product from a company that is in a very small but crucial industry worldwide, by saying small, I mean there's very, very few vendors, very few providers that customers around the world need. It's been a tremendous amount of fun. I've also had the unique experience. Well, I shouldn't say unique at this point, but the experience of being in a nascent industry in cybersecurity as it is growing, really getting to, at least for my company and my industry, have a lot of impact to the way cybersecurity in my industry has grown. When I first started at SCL in 2008, there were probably 15 people in the country who really thought of themselves as cybersecurity professionals for industrial control systems. And I knew every single one of them, saw every single one of them at every conference I went to. And so through that networking, through those conferences, through those connections, there's really very few of us who've been here since what I would consider the beginning of cybersecurity for power systems. I never thought I would do that coming into my career as well. At this point, it is nice to see how much it has grown. At this point, there's thousands of us, and I can't pretend to know even a small fraction of those people anymore. But really having what I consider an outsized influence in the way the industry has grown, I think is something that's really interesting that's happened to me.
Thanks. David, favorite part of your job? Or what?
Yeah, it's a great question. Multiple aspects speak out, but I think at the end of the day, what I think about is the favorite part of my job is helping people. And I break that down into multiple different ways of I think we all realize the importance of what we do within the global ecosystems that we all operate within, whether it's industrial control systems, water supply, electricity, national defense, et cetera. I think that shaping the industry is the most, I think, enjoyable piece of my day in terms of making an impact that really will help out for future generations and defend what we have in terms of critical infrastructure, in terms of making a difference that is felt across that. And I think that all starts with helping people. We want to help our communities. We want to help our nation, the global economies, et cetera. We all want to help in those aspects. So I think that's, if I were to break it down in most simplistic terms, it's helping out the people we live next to every day.
Great, thanks, David.
I can take it. I think I'm just gonna be echoing. I know I've heard you say this. I think I just heard everybody online say this. It's impact. It's that I have in cybersecurity, I can have one heck of an impact. I do supply chain reports for the Space Force, for the critical components list. When you're doing reports, it can get boring as all get out. But I had the opportunity at one point to walk into one of the primes, one of the first level subcontractors, and actually have a chance to see my impact. You walk into this big room, think like Costco, think like a couple of Costco's plugged together, and there's stuff all around the edges. And in the middle of this, there's this giant thing. It looks like somebody took a school bus, put it on its rear end, and wrapped it in space blankets. Like, what the? Oh, hang on. That's a military satellite. That's going into space in 9 months. That is what I'm securing. All of a sudden, I had impact. And that, when I get those opportunities, you don't often get those opportunities. Be aware. A lot of times you're going to be working in a NOC or a SOC, or you're going to be writing code, and you're not going to have that opportunity. But keep in the back of your mind why you're doing this, what the bigger picture is, and it can really change your outlook on a lot of that.
I would say two things. One, again, helping people, but more specifically helping resource-challenged agencies, or, I think of cities, counties, colleges, high schools, school districts. I go to a small county in Eastern Washington, and they have 2 IT folks. And I can go through and I can sit down for 3 hours, and I can give them some input and some ideas and improve their security posture by the time I leave. They have a punch list of things to do, and I'll go back and visit in 6 months, and hopefully they've got some of those things done. Depending on time. And the second thing I really like is working with smart people that make you a better person. And I will say that, if you're in I've worked in an environment with grumpy people and they don't have anything good to say about anything, and it kind of drains you and draws you down a little bit. You work with smart people that enjoy their job, you can learn from them, and, that's that aptitude, and attitude.
Thank you. Why don't you close us up with
Can I ask
Marcel?
one other question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so networking came up a lot early on. And I think it might be beneficial for the students to hear from you about how do you network well, right? What are some do's and don'ts of networking? Because I think a lot of times these days, we don't have as many opportunities for in-person networking, right? And so maybe it's not as natural. So what are some ways that you would recommend students network well?
So, LinkedIn is good, but I will say if someone reaches out to me on LinkedIn, doesn't put a comment, and they have, less than 50 or 100 connections, I'm likely not gonna connect, unless it's someone that I've met or I know. So make sure, put a note in there and say, hey, Dan, I saw you at the CySER event and I'd like to connect, something like that. LinkedIn's good. Other job sites include, like USA Jobs for federal jobs. There's a government job site for the state of Washington Department of Personnel. They each have their own, each sector has some, so like for education, higher ed jobs, Chronicle Careers, those are both good. I've gone through and set up alerts on a lot of those based on keywords of jobs I'm looking for. So they might say, cybersecurity, you could put in cybersecurity intern, whatever, and then I get an email when something pops up in that sector. But just, Indeed, Career Builder, ZipRecruiter, there's tons of sites. Just use this.
I don't know about building one well. I'm not entirely certain you'd call my network necessarily a good one, but a lot of it for me is much more organic. I am on LinkedIn because I had to be. I have resisted that one from a cybersecurity perspective quite a bit. I was informed that I had to, I did it. There's minimal information. For me, it's talking to folks, it's connections from other jobs, it's mostly at this point on Slack a little bit. There's several Slack channels, but Signal chats, WhatsApp chats. And for me, part of being a mentor is looping my interns into that. It's saying, hey, you're interested in this. I know a guy. I worked with a guy at IT when one of the guys I worked with at CySER. He is now at one of the big name companies doing malware reversing. He has probably one of the top jobs in the world. I got an intern that's interested in malware reversing. You know what? I'm gonna put them on together and make sure they're okay with it, but we're all gonna be in the same Slack channel or whatever. That's a lot of how my network works. It's not official. There's a lot of BS that goes on in those channels, but it's maintaining a connection, not necessarily focusing on the technical. Technical, we always talk about it. That's all our lives. But it's just maintaining that connection, the personal connection. I'm not asking them for anything most of the time. They're not asking me for anything most of the time. But just BSing, I guess.
Staying connected, it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily asking for anything.
No,
in a particular
they're-
moment. David, do you have thoughts on that?
I think those are spot on. And being on a virtual call here, I almost hesitate to say these words. So I realize how ironic it may be. But maintaining those personal connections is so important in those different settings. Meeting people, listening to them, and then maintaining that along the long haul, I think is one of the keys to success around that. And I think that organic is probably the best way to call it as well, of connecting the right people at the right times with different people in your I can't overemphasize the importance of that though. Like was mentioned many times before, a lot of jobs are built on that networking, on those Slack channels, on those back end signal chats, et cetera, of, hey, have you guys seen this problem? Hey, what's this look like? And how have you handled this? Those things are so important, just in a networking aspects, to learn from the community. And I think that organically going into finding your people and then connecting with them is a great way to grow that and maintain that over time, because I think it's very beneficial across the board. And this conference is a prime opportunity. I knew Joe from one of the previous workplaces that I had the pleasure to work with him at, and he was a phenomenal person, and we kept in touch. So as it goes, you never know where those opportunities may lead. So keep your options open and connect with people.
Great, thank you. Nathan, do you have anything to add?
So far, everyone's kind of talked logistics of how to create connections, kind of. For me, LinkedIn doesn't work. I'm kind of like Jess. I was forced to have a LinkedIn account. My boss told me I have to do it. And then the fun thing is, even 6 years later, he doesn't have his own LinkedIn account. So that was fun. I'm trained constantly. Don't click on links for unexpected emails. If it has this external sourced banner on it, treat it with caution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So even email is not that great to get to me. The best way to get to me is to have a one-on-one, face-to-face interaction, right? That's hard. Go to the bar. You'd be surprised at how many people at the bar know somebody who's in cybersecurity, even if they themselves are not. Get to know them personally. Create a story about yourself. Get them to get to know you as well. Hi, I'm Nathan Kipp. I have 2 kids. I love soccer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Get them to know you, right? And that's going to keep you memorable in their mind. Create a list of questions that you have ready to go, right? You try to pull everything out of your pocket ad hoc at the moment of a conversation. It's not going to go as well as if you're prepared ahead of time with a list of pre-built, cocked questions, right? That opportunity comes up when it's going to come up. You may not be ready for it. If you've got 2 or 3 questions to get the conversation started, that's a lot better than just trying to fumble around trying to figure out some way to get going. Having the ability to just go out and talk to people, make sure you are memorable, and make sure that you have some way to get the conversation going.
So what you're telling them is they need to have good pickup lines?
Yes.
Okay.
Go to the bar and have good pickup.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. Just like you were used to be in college, Dan.
Sonia, do you agree?
Well, I say my perspective is maybe a little bit different, just because I do work with so many students and so many interns. My advice to you as a student or as an intern is don't be afraid to ask for help. Your professors, your internship leads, we are here to help you. And if you are looking for a reference, I'll have students that reach out to me after 10 years and say, hey, I'm applying for a PhD program. Can you write me a letter of reference? And I'm always happy to write a letter of reference for, my students who have done well. And, but I think sometimes people are shy to reach out and to ask for help. And so my advice would be, hey, reach out for help. Don't hesitate. The worst thing that can happen is somebody says no. But in general, people who work with students, we love to work with students. We're here to help you get where you need to go.
Great, thank you.
And just one other thing, I would say, events, both cyber events
Yes.
and industry events. Now, a lot of times they might charge $500 or $1,000, but if you reach out to them and say, I'm a student, I just want to attend and observe, I'm not in the industry. There's healthcare, there's energy, there's every sector has conferences. In our area, even in Spokane, Seattle, there's ISSA, which is a security organization, ISC Squared and ISACA. They both do certifications. Just try and network with peers in whatever industry you want to be in or security specific.
Yeah, I'm gonna double down on that. I run a lot of conferences, becoming a thing. I'm not real thrilled with it, but it's a thing. If one of you guys reached out to me and said, hey, I want to come, I usually have scholarships in my back pocket. I usually am trying to get students to come. So yes, reach out to a conference organizer. They might be a big fancy one and they might tell you no, but especially if it's a littler local conference here in the Pacific Northwest, oh heck yeah.
Great advice.
For those of you that emphasize like organic connection, do you find yourself being friends with a lot of your connections, even on like a basic level, as opposed to just like I'm connected with this person? If that makes sense.
It makes sense. So for me personally, I don't do friendships very well or very easily. I have a few really, really good friends. Some of them are in the industry. Most of my connections, I would really call them acquaintances, or yeah, I guess acquaintances, right? And it doesn't mean I don't talk to them. That doesn't mean I don't connect or say hi every once in a while, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever else. Even though I don't use those tools very often, these really are the best methods that I have to keep contact with a former employee who left my company 6 years ago, right? But every once in a while, still reach out and just remind them that you're around, and if they need something or you need something, whether it's advice um, or a job, those things do come up every once in a while. Doesn't require a whole lot to maintain my network for me. Really only have a few, probably 7 or 8 people within the company that I really would consider friends, and probably half that, 3 or 4 outside in the rest of the industry.
Maybe you could allow one person or two to take this question, or?
Yeah, you guys have any friends?
What he said was very accurate. I don't,
Okay.
yeah, what Nathan said.
Yeah, and I will say, on LinkedIn, for example, I have, I don't know, 1,200, I have a ton of connections. And it used to be a challenge at the beginning. It's like, oh, I'm gonna get to 500. And then it's like, so do I know everyone? No. But occasionally I use those connections, and I use LinkedIn as an out-of-band way to get a hold of people. Because many organizations don't list IT contacts, and if I need to talk to them about cyber, that might be the only way I can get to them.
So you want me to ask the final?
Yeah, you go ahead and ask.
Okay, so this has been a very rich and informative panel. And I want to just give one more chance to say something to the students. And I wanted to know if you have like one final piece of advice for the students in the room that we haven't covered yet, what would it be? And we can start with Nathan.
Nathan, you are on.
You're on the big screen.
Ooh.
Sorry.
What's the bar?
One piece of advice you have not covered yet. Have fun. Be yourself. Don't try to shoehorn yourself into a position or a career that you end up not being happy with. Right? If you're having fun, it's the right spot. If you're not having fun, it may not require a lot of change to be having fun. Right? I've been at SEO for 17 years, and I've been in really 6 different roles in that 17 years. And I have had a couple of non-fun roles. And as soon as you realize they're not fun, some minor tweaks can generally get them to be at least suitable, if not downright fun. You got to be aware of that. If you let yourself stay in a position where you're not having fun for a long period of time, you're going to get burnt out. It will happen. And that might mean you leave the industry entirely. Generally, that extreme case is not necessary as long as you can make the tweaks necessary to make it be fun. For example, some people really like writing. I don't. Right? And I found myself in positions before where I have to do a tremendous amount of writing. It is not fun. Right? Talking. I'm good talking. I'm happy giving presentations. I'm happy teaching. Right? But I'm not happy writing. So if I'm in that position where I get to work with the exact same material, but work with a person, answer their questions verbally, I'm generally going to be in a good spot. When I'm all by myself, not interacting with people and just sitting there writing all day, I'm not so happy. So be happy, have fun, and figure out what works best for you.
Great, thank you. David?
I think to have fun, I'll echo. I think have fun, know your why. Why are you doing this? Relate it back to that and to the point of happiness. I think that will come if you are aligned with why you are doing it, and maybe it's the culture and everything else that you can maybe not change but influence around those things. I think that's a key component of it. And be resilient, right? Things aren't going to come easy. They're not going to come quick. At some point, you're going to have to dig in and probably take an opportunity that's less than ideal, but then figure out how to be happy with that and how to learn from that situation so that you do know what you want to do and what you don't want to do in the future. I would echo those points. And I think resiliency in the face of change is probably one of the key things that we all have to adapt to every day in this career field and always be learning around that. And so I would echo those. This is a lifelong learning process. You're never going to know it all. That is not possible. And be resilient across the changes that are coming our way and will continue to hit us left and right and until we get out of the field and everything else. So I think those would be my key takeaways.
Okay, great, thank you. Sonia?
Yeah, I guess my advice is to take advantage of any extracurricular activities that come your way, whether it's joining your cybersecurity club and, you know, engaging in cyber competitions to gain some of those hands-on skills, experiment with different Linux operating systems, have your own GitHub, you know, participate in research projects. You know, what really got me my job at AFRL was because I was part of my, you know, my cybersecurity team at my school, and I had competed in various competitions, and that kind of caught the eye of my future mentor there, in addition to some of my teaching expertise as well. So definitely look for those extracurricular opportunities where you can learn a little bit more. Thank you.
Great, thank you. How about Dan?
I would say any chance you get to have a speaking opportunity, take it. In the role I'm currently in, I hadn't done a ton of public speaking, but I've done conferences with 1,000 people and it's uncomfortable at first, but every time you do it, you get better. So take those opportunities, learn to communicate well. The other thing is I would consider certifications, you know, consider, you know, CISSP, I think you can get associates as a student, or, you know, CISM or Security Plus, any of those, because those might potentially be a differentiator between the next person that has an identical resume and doesn't have that. So yeah, that's what I got.
Find yourself a good mentor, or preferably 2 or 3. And this is the whole career long. I have mentors now, and there are people I've gone out and asked, hey, I'm looking for this relationship. Yes, there's programs they'll pair you up with mentors. I've not had great luck with those because I'm usually looking at, hey, this person is 5 or 10 years ahead of me in their career. That's where I want to be. I want to be wherever they're at. So, okay, hey, will you help me? Will you mentor me? Sometimes they're too busy. That's totally cool. But if you can find those mentors, they will change and grow over your lifetime as you're looking to grow in different areas. But having somebody outside of yourself can really help.
Thank you very much. I am glad you asked that question. There came a lot out of this one final question, and they are not short on great advices. Thank you very much for taking a long time in the afternoon, an hour and a half we've spent. I know in the East Coast, Sonia, and I don't know, David, where you are, but it's most likely, you know, to the east side to us. And so I know it is late afternoon on a Friday. So I really appreciate you sharing your experience, great wisdoms, and also be a part of the workshop now. Thank you very much for being patient. And so we'll be taking a break. Let's give a good round of applause for the panelists. So we'll have one final thing at 3.